Good evening. We are having our February the 6th meeting, and this evening I had emailed you a couple of things, and I hope you have those handy. The first thing I wanted to do was talk a little bit about papers and things that you might consider. Some of you, when you copy a document like test scores or something like that, that's a really small thing, you put it in the paper and it's really hard to read. And the best way to fix that right away is just to click on the document. It'll give you the little dots on the side, and you can stretch that sucker out to the margins and maybe just a little tug on the vertical, but it'll make it easier and make it, the presentation is nicer. So anyway, that's just a suggestion. Hopefully, I wanted to say one more time, if you are working on OMA 2 and you haven't looked at Dr. Lamb's video from last Thursday, you really should do that. And that's what you need to be doing. I've noticed that some of you, when you put a heading, everything under that heading is one long paragraph. It goes from, the leadership to the support staff and right on down to the school improvement team. And it's all one big long paragraph. If you would divide by topic the paragraphs, it would make your paper more professional. I've had a couple of people call me or email me about working on 3. When you get ready to look at that schedule, and I'm saying every time, don't use people's names, and the schedule is full of names, what do you do about that? And the easiest thing is to just use initials, because that way you're sort of getting around that whole issue of privacy, and you need to get used to doing that. Of course, you can always block it out. You can always say teacher A, B, C, D, E, teacher 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can, there's lots of ways to handle it, but I think since you're going to be trying to adjust that schedule, you want to be able to look at it and remember who it is that you've got in that spot. So you don't want to just redact, because then you don't have the name. But if you have the initials, for you, you know who that is. For other people reading it like me and an evaluator, we have no clue, so that's okay. So anyway, just some way so that you don't have their name. And I'm not saying you have to use initials. I'm just saying that's one of the ways that you can. And in the paper itself, names do not belong in the paper. It's a privacy issue. You need to be talking about the principal, the roles, the assistant principal, the curriculum facilitator, the guidance counselor. If there's more than one person, well, it's the assistant principal for instruction. It's the assistant principal for 9th grade. It's, the title of the person rather than the name. The last thing about the paper is that a lot of you are putting the template in the paper, and that's fine. But, and I don't mean to be condescending, but you really need to read that template, because a lot of you have the template in the paper, and it says that you're going to address these 4 ways of these 4 areas of instructional resources. And by cracky, if you look at the paper, those 4 things are not addressed. And so it makes me wonder, did you just forget to do it? Did you not read the template? Or, I don't know. But it's really good when you put the template in, make sure you scan it and make sure that you follow it, because fulfilling the template is really why Dr. Lamb created the template, was so that you would follow it. It wasn't something done by Dr. Todd or I. It's not It's not like each professor teaching 603 comes up with their own template. It's that it's a departmental template, and that's sort of the expectation. Okay. Any questions about paper construction or how to put the paper together, or questions about the paper before we do the competencies? Because that's what I want to spend most of the time on. And yes. Simanju, did you have a?
Oh, no, I wasn't raising my hand. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I understand. I do that sometimes myself. Yes, with Rupert. Yes. You're muted. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I noticed in some of my feedback is talking about putting titles with my appendices. I didn't do that at all last semester. If I had explained the appendix in the narrative, and then, explained it and referred to it in the narrative, then it was just Appendix B or whatever it was. I didn't then have a title for it. Appendix B is whatever, PowerPoint presentation. Is that? And
your question is, do you need to write a 3-word title or a 4-word title?
Basically, is that what is that the APA expectation, or?
Yeah, yes. I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think I've pointed that out, because I've sort of given up on APA with at some point, because Dr. Todd tends to do the APA, and she usually does that part, and I do the content.
Gotcha.
But every once in a while, it's so bad that I do say, hey, and then she'll say, well, I told him to do it.
Gotcha.
You just missed it. Sometimes when there's so many things that need to be looked at, it's easy to do that. But
okay.
I would do that.
Okay. All right.
Okay, that's a good question, because it's something that goes with every project. So, yeah. Other things about writing the paper. I want you to feel good about that. Okay, competencies. Now, one of the things that I heard last night is that you have free rein to choose what competencies you address. And that is most certainly true. But I would like for you to take that document that I sent you that says competency record. Okay. Now, on that competency record, if you will look where it says evidence 1 required, you'll see in little letters there under each, it says like there's an APSL required for communication, and there's a PSYOP required for communication, and then there's open-ended. Okay, so let's say when you were doing the student learning piece, you decided you weren't going to do communication. So you left it, and somehow it got through without you doing a communication one there. Well, when you get to 605 and you don't have a student learning submission, you're going to have to go back to the student learning and pull out a submission, because you have to have a submission for the ones that are required. So it's true, you can choose whatever, but in the end, you're going to have each of those spaces filled up. Communication is going to have 3 submissions, 1 from the PSYOP, 1 from the student learning, and 1 open-ended. And the open-ended, if back when you were doing your first semester, and the professor said, you must do, let's see, one that would be true of that. If they said you have to do customer focus, look down under customer focus, it says OMA and PSYOP. It does not say student learning. So when you did the student learning one, it was open-ended. Okay? Now, that is why I ask people to label them so that when you come back to that, you know you've done the open-ended, not a PSYOP, not an SL, not a teacher learning, but you've done the open-ended. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So right now, what you're talking about is for the Competency Folio?
The Competency Folio. Because
that goes in Taskstream.
That goes in Taskstream. That's what I'm responsible for.
Okay.
When you do, in this one, it's task 4, the reflection. The reflection is graded as part of the OMA. That is Dr. Todd's assignment. It's graded and it's part of the OMA, and you put it in there. And that's what she was talking about last night, that you need to be pulling from what we're doing here and in your internship. It should be what you're reading. It should be your cases that you're doing. It should be all of that. How are you improving communication? That's what she wants in task 4.
Okay. So for
task 5, but I mean, it's the reflection.
Right.
Okay. And that's what's happening. Mm-hmm.
So for the Competency Folio, I'm looking at the competency record that you gave us.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, like, for evidence 1, communication with relationships, it was the APSL.
Yes.
Last semester, we weren't given these guidelines.
Well, you were. Okay, let me interrupt. I'm going to interrupt and I'm going to say, okay, there was another document that I sent you.
But I didn't have you last semester.
No, it doesn't matter whether you had me or Sam Doe. Look at this document that I sent you.
Oh, wait, can you pull it up a little bit?
The other document.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This is copied right out of the Competency Folio, communication. And if you look at that, when you go to the folio, it says communication, and out beside that, it says 3 evidences: APSL, PSYOP, open-ended.
Okay.
Those are the requirements. I don't care if your professor told you to do them. I don't care. But when you get ready to submit this folio to Raleigh, there needs to be 3 submissions, and you don't have a choice about it. It needs to be student learning, PSYOP, and an open-ended. And you can submit more than 3.
Okay.
Okay, so if some professor says, I want you to do communication, and you go, heck, I already have 3 done. Well,
then you just do another.
You do another, and you can,
Right.
It'll take as many as you want to include.
Okay.
But the minimum is what it says there right beside the name of the competency. Okay.
So I got that, but when we wrote our competencies up, I didn't refer specifically to during the APSL, I wrote it up, and my feedback was that it was good. I wrote up, I did this. It was basically related to my internship. And this is what I did for communication in my internship. Is that still okay, or that is not it?
Well, it's fine, but the whole reason that I gave people the format was that it was all over the place. And the problem is not so much the first semester, because you just plug the stuff in, dump it in, and life is good. But then you come in and you try to do a second one, and you put the narrative, and if you're not careful, the narrative splits the evidence that goes with the first one. So what you have is looks like a spaghetti bowl by the time you finish and you get into 605. So no, it is not a departmental requirement. It's not, I guess there's no such thing as professional license. But
I'm just asking because I want to know if I need to, I know you guys are
Well,
going
I
to
just
regrade
like
it.
to, I think if we get through this, the discussion, I think you'll see, and this is going to be the last discussion I think we probably need to have about this. What it says under communication, and I mean that in a positive way, I really do. It says, this is not something I wrote, this is what appears under communication in the folio. It says, one of these three, and it gives you the number, the things again, must satisfy the following digital learning competency. So that's your alert that this one requires a digital competency. And it not only requires a digital competency, it tells you what they think you should be focusing on in this digital competency, because it says promote and model positive digital citizenship